on. I see Morris is looking inside, waiting. See to start the Gemara inside on Lamed Aleph on the base on 31b. And the Gemara says we spoke about that Chana, by the way, who goes on to become the mother of Shmuel tonight. You know what you're going to say? You know what you're going to say in your prayers tonight? You're going to say, Moshe v'Aaron v'Chohanav u'Shmuel b'Korei Shmo. You're going to talk about Shmuel Hanavi, and Shmuel, some say, was the second greatest Navi after Moshe Rabbeinu. Amazing Navi. He's the one that anointed David HaMelech as king, Shaul HaMelech as king. But how did he come to this world? How did he come to the Shabbat Shalom? He came to the world partially, of course, because of the help of his mother's prayers. His mother prayed that she should have a child. And you know what? God answered her prayers and gave her the child and gave him Shmuel Hanavi. And he grew up to be such a great, and I don't believe he became such a Navi by himself. Having such special parents, Elkanah and Hannah, help educate him and help bring him to become such an amazing son, such a God-fearing person. But the Gemara says that Hannah used Hannah says, Ba'ani amatecha. He says to Hashem about seeing the difficulties of your maidservant, the difficulties that she doesn't have children. Lo tishkach es amatecha. Don't forget amatecha, your maidservant. V'nasata la'amatcha, and give to your maidservant a child. So she uses this word amatcha, your maidservant, 3 times in very close proximity. What's the necessity? Why did she go ahead and she say amatcha 3 times, where she could not, it wasn't necessary to use the word your maidservant 3 times? She could have said, give it to me. Why should it emphasize your maidservant? Because the word amatecha also has in the word mate. The word amatecha has the word mate. What does mate means? Death. So what was she referring to? She says, Amra Chana lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chana said to God, Shlosha bitkei mita barata b'isha. You created 3 times of 3 bitkei mita. 3, when a woman is checked 3 times, if she violates one of these 3 sins, she's in great danger of death. V'armila, and some say shlosha, some said, Chana said, you created 3 divkei mita. There are 3 things that can attach to a woman that she could die premature, early. And one of the 3 things that a woman is checked is she gets a scorecard. God looks at certain 3 things that she does. By the way, you sent to the group. Everyone knows one, right? Yeah, thank you very much. Beautiful. That's why we have such great people on, most probably. But there's other people that are not on who are missing them. So the Gemara says, Ele Nida, a lady, if she doesn't chas v'shalom keep the mitzvot of Nida. So God checks, looks how she's doing on the mitzvah of Nida. If she doesn't keep the mitzvah of Nida, chas v'shalom, God might take her life early. Nida. What did you say? Yeah, but the man might not know that she's not keeping our laws. She might just be lazy and she's not on top of the game. Like it says, they die because of 3 things. If the lady is not careful in nidah, chas v'shalom, or in the midst of separating challah, when she's making a certain amount of dough, she has to separate challah. Good morning, Avram. Or if she's not careful, challah, that means if she's baking, let's say she's making a lot of challah for Shabbat, or she's making a lot of cake. She's making, let's say, 2.5 pounds of cake, of dough. She's making a dough that has 2.5 pounds. She has to separate a piece, take, let's say, a size of an ounce, a kazayit of challah, and separate it. And what does she do with it? So usually they burn it, or some people, if they don't burn it, they throw it out. Whatever they do, because during the time of the Beit HaMikdash, even today, small piece the size of a kazayit or something, right? They take off a piece of challah, and they, if I'll take out the Yalkut Yosef, in the midst of challah. So here we have the page 810. So 810. When you're doing a nice amount, he says, Hilchot Challah. It says in the Torah that when you eat from the bread of the land, you have to separate, give to the Kohen. This was one of the things that went to the Kohen. You took off a piece of challah from the dough and you gave to the Kohen. Therefore, there's a mitzvah to take off, but today, now, a piece is, let's say, you take a round piece of the dough, a piece. The Kohen could eat it. It belonged to the Kohen in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, when they used to do everything in purity, when they would have, they would, and the laws would apply. So then the Kohen would eat the challah. But today the Kohen, right? Because so here we're remembering the mitzvah. We still, but no, we can't eat it because technically this is supposed to be for the Kohen. The Kohen can't use it. So,
can you give it to your dogs?
I don't know. I don't think you give it to your dog. I don't believe so. No.
I never said it.
He says on the Torah level, the obligation to separate challah is in the Holy Land only. Listening, Amaris? In the Holy Land, you have to take off, and even in the Holy Land, it's only when all of Israel are there. But therefore, today's day and age, that most Jews don't live in the land of Israel at this time that the Yalkut Yosef wrote. I don't know if that has changed. Most Jews do not live in the land of Israel. The obligation is rabbinic. But we keep rabbinic obligations. We keep Muksa, we keep Mitzvah Chanukah, Purim is Rabbanan, Chanukah is Rabbanan, we keep the Rabbanan, right? So in the Holy Land today, it's Rabbanan. Now, rabbinically, outside the land of Israel, we separate challah in order not to forget about this mitzvah. Because one day we're going to come back to the Holy Land and we're going to have what? We're going to have the mitzvah of challah again. And we make a bracha. If you make a certain amount of dough, but Ashkenazim, what we do by Ashkenazim, we say if the dough is between many of us say, between 2.5 and 5 pounds, they separate the challah, but they don't make the bracha. But if they make a big batch of 5 pounds of dough, then they would actually say a bracha and separate the challah. Now, when the Torah says you take off an amount, Ariel was talking, how much challah do you need to take off? Min Torah, there's any amount. Technically, on a Torah level, any amount of challah on a Torah level, you ain't lem shir. Any amount you separate and you give to the Kohen would be fine. But rabbinically, they say but in our days that the Kohanim cannot eat the truma. He says nowadays the Kohanim cannot eat the truma because they're tamei and the challah is burnt. So they take a small amount of challah. He says any amount. Interesting that he says any amount. He says, and there are those from the Ashkenazim that take off a kazayit. How do you like that? So from the Sfardim, he says you only need to take off any amount, Ariel, like you were saying, any amount of challah. But by Ashkenazim, they'll take off about an ounce of challah, the size of a kazayit of challah, and they'll go ahead and after they take it off, they burn it in fire. And really, it's ideally you shouldn't throw the challah in the garbage. And some say you should not burn the challah when you with other food in the oven. Some say you should burn it by itself. And some are lenient, and he says we are lenient. He says, Yes. No, it means back then. No, it means no. You need majority. As long as you have majority. Okay, you didn't get this challah is not. It's not for the kohen, but any kohen. Any kohen, you would give the challah to any kohen, right? So therefore, let's say during the time, let's say in the time of the second Beit HaMikdash, right? So you would give it to the kohen. But you would leave in outside of Israel. You would also give it to rabbinically. You would give it to the kohen. We don't do it today because the kohanim are tamei. But the kohanim, if they come, the kohen goes to a cemetery, goes to a funeral. Let's say he lost one of his close relatives. Generally, a kohen cannot go to a funeral. But let's say his father passed away. He goes to the funeral, but he remains tamei unless he has the ashes of the paraduma on him, right? So therefore, therefore the kohanim would be tamei. They don't have a way to, and there are other reasons why today people are tamei, and therefore there's no way to get off that tumah. We don't have the ashes of the paratuma. So therefore, he says, if you cannot burn that piece of challah, what we do is you take the piece of challah, you put it in a piece of aluminum foil, and then you put it in the oven, and it burns, and let that piece of challah burn. What'd you say? Meaning the challah that you separated, what are you supposed to do with the challah you separated? You're not supposed to benefit from it. You don't give it to the dog, but Yosef said, he asked about giving it to the dog. So what do? You burn that little piece of challah. You burn that little piece of challah. But what about if it's difficult, if you can't burn that piece of challah, whatever reason it is, you should wrap it nicely in a piece of paper, and respectively, and then you put it into the garbage. You put it into a bag, and you put it into a garbage. And then similarly, after you burnt the challah, he says you could take it and put it into the garbage. Whatever's left from the challah that you burnt, you put it into the garbage. That's not called disrespectful for the mitzvah if that's the case. All right. So that's a little bit the laws of challah, and B'ez Hashem, everybody should be familiar with the laws of the challah. So now, and the Gemara says that there are three things. Right, Yaron? There are three things that God checks the woman. What are the three things? Nida, chala, and hadlakat haner. That it's very important that the woman lights the candles before Shabbat. She shouldn't be lazy. And you know what Chana says? Again, the third thing is nida, chala, and lighting the candles to cover Shabbat. A lady has to be very careful to light them the right time. Did I violate any of these three things? Did I violate nida? I did not violate nida. Did I violate chala? I did not violate chala. Did I violate the mitzvah of lighting candles? I lit candles. By the way, it's an amazing thing that lighting candles in honor of Shabbat is a mitzvah derabanan. There's no Torah obligation to light candles to cover Shabbat. The rabbi there's no pasuk in the Torah. Is there a pasuk in the Torah that says light candles to cover Shabbat? No. The Rabbanan said that in honor of the Shabbat, you light the candles. How far back is this mitzvah of lighting candles to cover Shabbat? I would have thought that it was instituted by the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. I would have thought it started like in the beginning of the second Beit HaMikdash. But we see from here that it's much earlier. For the time, meaning Chana already was lighting Shabbat candles. We find by Sarah, we find in Midrash that Sarah had candles lit from Friday to Friday, right? There's a special, I think it says there was a special bracha that the candle stayed the whole week, right? This is a Rashi like that. Sarah Imenu lit later. Yes, what do you want to say?
There is something special in lighting candles. I don't know if I ever say it in this form, but if you look on the gematria of candle, it's Nen and Resh. And Nen and Resh, it's 250. And 250, because you light two candles, it's 500. Now, when you do the Shema, how many words there is there? 248. Okay, the symbol of the Evarim that a man have in his body.
Right.
Okay. Now, a woman, how many Evarim a woman have? 252.
52, okay.
Together, it's basically 500. So when she's lighting those candles, unified between her and her husband, that's what she's bringing the souls a higher level.
Beautiful, beautiful. So
Beautiful.
you're saying the 248 of the man and the 252 of the wife equals
Yosef, amazing.
500. And there in 2 Neiros, and therefore we say Lechatchila on Shabbat, you're supposed to light at least 2 candles. Well, you should know. Very good. But you should know that if you don't have 2 candles to light for Shabbat, you can light 1 candle, but that's not ideal. You're supposed to light Lechatchila 2 candles, like Yosef said. Very good. Now,
Rabbi, Hannah,
yeah.
when is the timing of Hannah? She's like the timing of when is about? Before the Bet HaMikdash, after when
Say
about?
that again. When is what?
When is Hannah time? What time?
Very good. Hannah is before the Beit HaMikdash, because remember, Hannah was the mother of Shmuel, and Shmuel is the one who anointed David HaMelech, and David HaMelech's son Shlomo built the Beit HaMikdash. So we are before the first Beit HaMikdash era. There's the Mishkan. There's the Mishkan is still around in Eretz Yisrael. There's no Beit HaMikdash. And that's when Hannah is living. And we see she's lighting candles all the way back then. All the way before the first Beit HaMikdash. She's honoring the Shabbat. It could be that it was not an obligation that everybody had to light the candles, but the women did it. The women did it in those days. It became maybe a formal obligation later on. But we see that the women were lighting candles to cover Shabbat. And really, the fact that a woman would be checked, Chana says that a woman would be checked, is she careful in this mitzvah? So it would seem from that maybe it was an obligation from the time of Hannah already. Because how could God check the woman and to hold it against her if she doesn't light the candles? If it's no obligation. What?
Hannah lost 7 kids, right? That's her?
That was, I think I know Penina lost many kids. I'm not sure if Hannah was the one who lost the 7 kids. I have to look that up. But yes. Now we're talking about Hannah. We're talking about the wife of Elkanah, who was the mother of Shmuel HaNavi. The mother of, we're talking about the great Navi. There's a sefer called Shmuel. One of the Nevi'im is called Shmuel. And he was the one who anointed, when you learn about David HaMelech and you learn about Shaul. We just read about Shmuel recently on Pashat Zohar, Shabbat Zohar. Everyone remembers the Haftorah of Zohar was the Haftorah of Shmuel HaNavi with Shaul, because Shaul HaMelech was supposed to get rid of Amalek. And you know what? And he did not get rid of everybody. He left the king. He left Agag. And Shmuel HaNavi says to Shaul, what's going on? I hear, and he left the animals, some animals, and Agag is alive. And Shaul says, you know what? I was afraid of the people. People didn't, the people wanted me to leave some. I did not get rid of everybody. And he was supposed to get rid of everybody. So you know what happened? He was punished that he lost the kingdom. Shaul lost remaining king of Israel because he didn't follow instructions. He was told Shaul was a great tzaddik, but he did not follow instructions. Why? Because he was intimidated by the people. Shaul's personality was very humble. And sometimes when you're humble, you get intimidated in places where you should not be intimidated. You get intimidated by people because, you don't want to go up against people. And that was Shaul HaMelech's problem. He was intimidated. And the other problem was he didn't admit in the beginning that he made a mistake. He first tried to rationalize why it was done until he finally admitted the truth. But by the time he admitted the truth, it was a little bit too late. God already said that there's going to be a better man for the job. David HaMelech is the better man for the job. You did.
Yeah, we read it in the 2-3 weeks ago in the portion.
Exactly. I just wanted to give Ariel was asking a little bit about Shmuel to get an appreciation of Shmuel HaNavi. That was the great Shmuel HaNavi who that we were talking about. And that's what we're learning about his mother. Great people don't come by themselves. Usually, many times, of course, sometimes there are people that are able to become on their own, Bali Tshuva, and so on and so forth. But most of the time, it's the parents that make that are the ones who have you guided them so much and who have helped make the person who they are. And here we have the great Chana. And now, so we see from here. Now, I would say maybe that the women understood that you have to honor Shabbat. That's an old. Everyone understands it's a mitzvah to honor Shabbat, and maybe that was and all the women would do that. They would light the candles, and if a lady didn't do that, God might punish them for it. Now, so she says, Hannah says, so therefore I did not violate any of them. So since I didn't violate any of them, so why am I, in a certain sense, I like to say, she's saying, I'm missing out on life. Because there are three things that cause a death of a person to die possibly premature. The fact that I'm not able to have children, that God did not give me children, in a sense, God is taking you away from my life. Because a woman, many women, like it says by Rachel said to Yaakov, if I don't have children, I feel like I'm missing in life. She says, Meita anochi. A woman she feels she's missing in life, that she doesn't have a child. And therefore, what Hannah is saying, there are three things that check a person, that the person's life could become shortened. So why is my life I'm missing in life? My life, she feels like she's missing in life because she doesn't have a child. In a certain sense, she's, that's why she refers to herself like she's not alive. In a certain sense. Shmuel, right? So right, we're talking Elkanah. Now, so what kind of child does she ask for? What type of child? This amazing Gemara, everybody, coming up. What type of child do you ask for? So there's different opinions in the Gemara. There's one opinion in the Gemara that says, she says, I want a child that's not too smart, not overly smart. I don't want him to be too much. Smart, not too dumb, chas v'shalom. I want him to be one of the boys, so to speak. Why? One of the boys. I want him to be that he doesn't stick out. Because if he sticks out, I'm afraid of ayin hara. If my child will be a genius, and everybody will see that he's a genius, people will talk about him. And if people talk about him, oh, morning, Mr. Asmi. Very good. Yeah, very good. We're gonna have the Gemara now. Mr. Asmi he learned this Gemara, and it's a model of other people that are working people should learn. Like everybody here is doing. Has doing our conversation this morning about everybody. Every person is a role model. When people learn. When you see Mr. Ajmi for years, you see him in the Beit Midrash after davening. He's sitting in the Beit Midrash. So that's a role model that people see. It's an advertisement people see. Okay, we'll get you the recording of this today. We have to remember, you can look it up. So she says, I want a zera anashim. So we said one shot is she wants a child that doesn't stick out because she doesn't want people talking about him. And if people talk about him, there's a problem. The problem is she doesn't want ayin hara. Chas v'shalom, someone would give a bad eye. And that's a terrible thing. A bad eye is a terrible thing. So she says that's one opinion in the Gemara. However, what I found interesting, and that is the opinion that I remember very well. But I found interesting, the Gemara brings other opinions. Other opinions is she's asking for the gold medal. She wants a child that's going to be an amazing child to do great things for the community. And this is going to be an inspiration for all of us. When a woman asks for children, or a man asks for children, right? It's not only your wife should pray for children, you should pray for children. What type of child should you pray for? You should, according to this Gemara, the other rabbis say you should pray for a child that's going to be great, that's going to accomplish great things, that's going to be, so let's see what the Gemara says. Amar Rav, Gavra beguvin. I'm wanting a zera anashim. I want anashim. It's like anashim is like a language of chashivut, a man. I want it to be a man among the men. I want him to be someone of importance. I want him to grow up to be someone a very important person. That's one opinion in the Gemara. Shmuel Amar, another great rabbi, Shmuel, Rav Shmuel, this is from the greatest rabbis in the Gemara. Shmuel understands Zera Moshiach Shnei Anashim. I want my child to be the one who will be the one to anoint kings for Israel. I want him to be such a holy person that he will have the ability to anoint kings. And you know what happened? He went ahead and he anointed kings. It didn't have meaning, so the Gemara is connecting that his ability in the future to anoint kings was directly connected to his mother's prayer. Do you see the power of prayer? Anoint means that when you anoint the king, that means you say, you pour certain oil on him, and you say, now you're the new king. You're gonna be the new king. You crown, it's like the crowning of the king. So because of her prayer, she asked before the child was born, she's looking for her child to be that one. And you know what happened? It came to fruition.
Rabbi, this is amazing.
What did you say, Mike?
This is amazing.
Amazing. That's right. It's amazing. But you realize, tell your wife, everyone should tell their wife, look at the power of their prayer, of a woman's prayer. A man's prayer is also powerful. But look at the power of how Hannah was answered. Uman Inan Shaul v'David. It was Shaul and David that he anointed. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Rabbi Yochanan says, I want Zerah, a child, and Nashim, that will equal two great men. That my child should equal Moshe and Aaron. And you know what happened? It happened. Zerah, she said, I want a child that will be as great as two great people in the Jewish community. Who are two of the greatest people ever in the Jewish community? Moshe and Aaron. Uman inu Moshe and Aaron. As it says, Shenema, Moshe and Aaron v'chohanan, Moshe and Aaron and their kohanim, u'Shmuel b'korei Shmo. Shmuel's on this side. B'korei Shmo. That means Moshe and Aaron is on this side and Shmuel's on this side of the scale. So what does it mean? Shmuel is equal in a certain sense. Now what does that mean? We know Moshe Rabbeinu was greater than all prophets. But maybe, okay, very good. So,
Rabbi,
yes.
Also, you can learn, or actually to remember, the initials of Hannah. It's Chala, Nida,
Nida,
and
Hadlakat Haner.
Hadlakat Haner.
How do you like that? And her name, Hannah, and she was careful in all three. Beautiful.
What's the gematria, Yosef?
We'll work on the gematria. Rabbanan Amri. The Rabbanan say, Zera Anashim, Zera Shem Muvla Bein Anashim. I want him to be Muvla, absorbed among the people. I don't want him to stick out. Because I'm afraid of Ayin Hara. You know, my father of blessed memory would always quote the Chazal that when Yaakov Avinu sent his sons to Egypt to buy food, he sent 10 sons. And the 10 sons, every one of them was mighty powerful. They were powerhouses of guys. And they was probably good looking as well. They were all good looking as well. So he told them, I want you to go through 10 different gates. When you enter the country of Egypt, I don't want you to use one gate. Go the southern gate, the eastern gate, the northern gate. Go on all different gates into the city. Why? I don't want you guys to stick out. Because I'm afraid of Ayin Hara. Yaakov Avinu was afraid of Ayin Hara. And therefore he told his sons, don't go in the same gate. And there, I know someone, a very fine person, that he had a few sons. He had a few sons, and they were close in age. And he told them not to walk together in the street. Not to walk together in the street. Why did he tell them not to walk together? He was afraid. The father was afraid. Chas v'shalom of Ayin Hara. Don't walk together. Because you don't know, there might be a person in the street that might not have that good eye. And he might look at them and say, oh, look at those boys. Look at all those same boys from the same father and whatever. And they might not, my father of blessed memory once told me a story. He had a meat store. And he was young. His father passed away. Maybe my father was 18 when he took over the meat store. And my father at that time was a very strong man. You know, when you work in the meat business, a lady came into the store and she said something like, "Wow, you know, you're running the store," and she was talking him. And right after she left, he felt sick. He felt sick. He really felt, he didn't know what, like he lost all his strength. And he said to us, this was many years later, he's afraid that he might have received an ayin hara. And he felt that he received an ayin. Avram, you remember that? He said he felt that he's afraid that he received an ayin hara, that the lady, you know, was like so much talking about him, but maybe she didn't give that proper look at him, and therefore he felt sick. He felt he was unbelievably sick. He said from the
Rabbi, for
Yes.
that reason, some people putting the red string on the left hand.
Thank you for joining. Shabbat shalom. Yeah.
You know, you heard about the red string on the right
Yes.
hand.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and there is many. I don't want to get too much into the details, but there's basically weakness. The ayin hara, it will coming to you. It's like vaccination in a way, you know, because there is a lot of symbolicity where the red string and why the red and what kind of a string. And it's a vaccination because it's lower the dose of the ayin hara that can come into a person, and
Right.
that's what it is.
But I think there are some people that they get it from connected with Rachel, right? With Rachel,
Yes,
the cave of
exactly.
Rachel. That I
Yeah,
would
that's what
say most, right? And I
I
think
didn't
they
want to
get,
get into much details, but
I know, but I would just say on that point, Yosef, that about Keva Rachel is because we know that Rachel was and get the string, it's something with connected with Keva Rachel. Rachel was the mother of Yosef. And
yeah,
Yosef was given the bracha. There was not going to be any ayin hara against Yosef.
exactly.
Because why? Yosef protected his mother. That from Esav, that Esav should not put his eyes on Rachel. Rachel was very pretty. So Yosef stood in front of his mother to block his mother, that Esav shouldn't see her. So therefore, as a result of that, Hashem gave a bracha to Yosef that you protected your mother from the eye of Esav. Have a great Shabbat. Thank you so much for everything. So you will be protected. That you will be protected. Your children will be protected from the evil eye. You protected from the bad eye of Esav. Your children will be protected from anybody's bad eye. Yes, Ariel. And I don't know. I'm just connecting the why they do something with the Kever Rachel. Because Rachel has to do with the mother of Yosef, and
Yeah,
Yosef is the one who's protected from ayin hara.
it's made out of wool, you know, and they basically take it and wrap it around the tomb of Rachel,
Rachel.
and then they take it and basically put it on your hand. And the red, if you want to know, it's the lowest dose that can come, and red is basically eliminate, you know, the effect of like everything in the world basically. So because red is like the basic color, you know, and it's act like vaccination basically against the ayin hara.
Very good. You remember we had a Gemara in Berachos, Mike. You remember the Gemara Yosef Avram? We remember the Gemara that Rabbi Yochanan maybe was very handsome. I think it was Rabbi Yochanan, and he was sitting outside by the place of the tefillah. And the question was, why wasn't he worried about ayin hara? All the women were going to see him. So he says, I'm from the descendants of Yosef. I'm not worried about ayin hara. I have protection. I am, like Yosef's words, I'm vaccinated. I'm from the children of Yosef. Remember that Gemara? I don't have to worry about ayin hara, he says. Okay. I don't know if we said proper hello to Haron who's here. Good morning, Haron. So the Gemara says, Ki ata, Rav Dimi. When Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, Amar, he said, this is what Mr. Adrian was alluding to before. Lo aruch v'lo guts. I don't want him to be so tall. I don't want him to be guts. I don't want it to be so short. I don't want it to be so short. V'lo katan. I don't want it to be extremely thin, it would seem like. V'lo alam. I don't want him to be very heavy. I don't want it to stick out that look how he looks so heavy, or look that he looks so thin. V'lo tzachor. I don't want him to be so extremely pale. I don't want him to be red. That is going to stay his complexion is that type of complexion. I don't want him to be overly smart, veloti page. I don't want him to be foolish. I don't want him to stick out too much. Now, Hashem accepted the prayer of Hannah, and Eli gave her a bracha that she should have a child. She went back home.
Rabbi,
Yes.
he was actually brilliant. It was Shmuel.
Right, he was brilliant. Yeah. So the question is, maybe does that mean that this part of her prayer might not have been answered? Maybe it shows you that part of her prayer wasn't answered.
Or maybe no. Maybe he was. Maybe her prayer was answered because he was brilliant, but the Aina didn't affect him at the end. She prayed this just so he doesn't have Aina. So we don't that the Aina affected Shmuel, right? He was a Navi. I mean, he was kind of protected from Hashem. Is that possible, Rabbi?
Yeah, yes. I want to say, I think you'll appreciate, very good. He was protected, yes, but the question was, I see it, one of the commentaries says a beautiful idea, Mike, on what you're saying, that on what you're asking. Mike asked, she asked that he should not be so smart, but we see he was brilliant. The answer is that he might have been born with average, medium abilities, but he took those abilities and he went big with them. Meaning not necessarily was he born, there are some people that are born brilliant. You see a little kid, he's brilliant, he's so quick, he didn't do anything to become that. It's automatic, natural, God gifted him, you'll fail a test. It's why is this 4-year-old, why is he so smart? The answer is, that's how God made him. But then there's the other person who's born with mediocre abilities, but he takes those abilities and he runs with it and he grows so much. That was Shmuel HaNavi. And every person has the ability to go ahead and take their abilities that they're gifted, like the Rambam says. Everybody can be a chacham. You don't need to be a genius to be a chacham. If you work hard and you put in the time, Hashem will help you. Like, so he says, so therefore the comment here, that he was born, Hannah's prayer seems to have been accepted, and he was born with average abilities. But look what
Rabbi,
he grew to. Yes.
Also, you have to remember that she prayed, but she was crying and crying and crying. And it says only the crying gate, is still open.
Right. Beautiful. The Gemara is going to talk the tears. Yes. But look what happens. This Chaim Shmulevitz, the Mir Rashiva, says this point. That he says this point that he had average abilities, and look what he became.
And add to that, it says the born of Shmuel was greater miracle even than Sarah itself, because first of all, she was pregnant only 6 months and like few days, okay, and same as Sarah and Leah, Rivka gave birth on the Rosh Hashanah. She also gave birth on Rosh Hashanah.
Very good.
And that's why we read a portion also on Rosh Hashanah.
Yes, I want to tell you that, some say that she was remembered on Rosh Hashanah. Might be different opinions exactly whether he was born Rosh Hashanah or not. But there's an amazing story, everybody. You got to listen to this amazing story. The story goes like this. The story goes that there was a person by the name of Naphtali Tzvi. He became the Tzil, and he heard his parents one night. He wasn't a good student. He wasn't a good student, and they came from a family of rabbis, and he overheard a conversation of his parents, and his parents said, we feel bad that our son is not going to continue in the tradition of the family. He's not going to go ahead and become a rabbi. And when he heard that, he said to himself, I'm gonna be able to do it. I'm going to do it. And he pushed himself and he became the great rabbi. He wasn't being successful as a kid. And most probably he wasn't born with the amazing abilities that his ancestors were born. But he took it to heart. And a lot of great people, not necessarily they're born brilliant, but they work hard, and that's greatness. And look how great Shmuel became. He became second to Moshe in prophecy. a person has to realize what you could accomplish with hard work. It's all about the hard work. You hear that, Yaron? It's all about the hard work, putting in the time and learning and growing and perfecting oneself.
Also, she was like 130 years old or something like that when she gave birth.
That
Older
was,
than Sarah.
That was your chevet. That was your chevet, I think, Moshe Rabbeinu's mother, I think. I think
no,
that was your chevet that was 130.
I think.
Okay, well, you could check.
But 130 שנה, yeah, 130 years.
Who was 130? Who was?
Hannah.
Hannah, okay, but I think, okay, maybe. Great miracle. So the Gemara says, Ani, and we're just going to end, we're going to end with this piece. Ani ha'isha hanitzeveh simocha bezeh. She comes back to Eli, to the Mishkan Shiloh. She comes back and she brings her son Shmuel. I am the woman who stood here with you. Remember when I was praying for a child? Rabbi Shulman Levi. If somebody is praying, you can't sit within 4 amot of someone who's praying, because you're going to maybe you'll disturb them or something. Because she says, I am the woman who was standing here with you. Eli was standing with Hannah. When Hannah was praying, Eli wasn't sitting. Why wasn't Eli sitting? Because since she's praying, I can't sit. You can't sit within Dalet Amot of someone who's praying. The only thing is, the halacha says, but if you're also praying, I think the halacha says that you should be able to sit if you're involved in prayer. And so if you're praying, right, while the other person is praying. So
I heard a story about it, Rabbi, which is, because you're not allowed to stand because the person who's praying can be afraid that you can steal his prayer, basically. That I heard a story from some rabbi that one day he stood next to his grandfather, and his grandfather, when he was ending the Amidah, he looked down to his grandson and he told him, the rabbi who told the story, and he told him, are you stealing my prayer in Yiddish? And he told him, no, I was just looking and admiring you. And from there, you learn that you cannot really stand next to somebody who's praying Amidah if you don't pray yourself, because you're afraid of somebody will steal your prayer,
Interesting. Okay, I want to wish everyone a beautiful Shabbat, and we'll be on Sunday, Bez Hashem, Sunday at 10 o'clock. And thank you, everybody, for joining.
Chazak, Rabbi, thank you. Beautiful.
Chazak,
thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Shalom.
Bye, everybody. Yosef Yaron.
Bye, Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, bye, thank you.
Bye, Shabbat
Take
shalom.
care, Mike. Yosef,
Thank you, bye-bye.
Rabbi, say
everybody.
Shabbat shalom to Ariel.
Yes. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Shalom. Bye, Rabbi.
You too. Bye-bye, Aaron. Shalom. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Rabbi, quick question before Rabbi.
Yes.
You remember you said that the 3 brachot of the Amidah, the 3 first brachot, they connected, right?
Right.
But and that was why Ata Gibor is not starting with a Baruch Ata, right?
Right.
But he's ending with a Baruch Ata.
Right.
So now that made the disconnection between Ata Gibor and Ata Kadosh.
All the brachot in Shemona Esrei besides the first don't begin with the Baruch. Only the first bracha begins with Baruch. The
So
second, the third, all connected to the first. All connected to the first bracha.
Oh God.
All connected with the first opening, Baruch Atah Hashem.
That's okay. That's why all the brachot. That's the okay.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay,
Shabbat
Rabbi.
shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat
Thank
shalom.
you.
Bye bye.
Shabbat shalom. You too. Bye-bye.